This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this webinar is a brief overview for county auditors as they certify local government budgets in their county. So the certification process is required by statute of county auditors, and it basically involves counties receiving the local government budgets from the townships, the ag extension assessor, cities, and schools within their county. And it requires the county auditors or the county auditor staff to review those documents for certain basic pieces of information that will make them statutorily compliant. And typically around later February and then, of course, into March is when most county auditors' offices will start receiving budgets. For the county to certify budgets, they are required to go to the online system, the same system that you use for valuations, annual financial reports, and to submit your own budget. So you would log into that page off of the Department of Management's website. And just a brief reminder, the Department of Management's role is to provide the forms. So these web-based forms, we provide instructions and we provide technical assistance for all local government budgets. We also will provide assistance to the county auditors as they work through the certification of those local government budgets. So as you're working through certification, you are very welcome to contact Department of Management staff. This listing just includes our contact information as well as the different types of budgets that we each work in. So for me, when we're talking about budgets, we're talking about the county budget, county hospitals, ag extension, and assessors. Ted in our office works with cities and townships as well as miscellaneous districts. And John Parker in our office works with the school districts, community colleges, as well as emergency management and 911 budgets. So when we talk about the budget certification process, be aware that most budgets are due to the county auditors by March 15th. However, it is February 28th for emergency management budgets, March 1st for sanitary budgets, sanitary sewer budgets, March 31st for cities and counties, and April 15th for schools. So county auditors receive documentation for those different types of budgets. County auditors then certify those budgets, and we'll talk through that process. Department of Management, upon the certification locally of county auditors, we then do our own verification and send out individual budget certifications when we finalize budgets. We will then certify consolidated tax rates, so essentially combine all of the local tax district rates by levy authority by tax district, and we send those out to the county auditor. And the county auditor then provides a tax list to the county treasurer by June 30th. So we're talking about those budget deadlines. The next logical question is, of course, does any of those budgets receive a budget extension option? Cities and counties only can request a budget extension from Department of Management in writing, and it's for circumstances beyond their control. So when we talk about circumstances beyond their control, it's usually involving things like publication errors by the newspaper, illness, software problems, things of that nature. If an extension is granted, a letter with a new due date is sent to the city or county, and the county auditor is also copied on that. So that way, if a city in your county receives a budget extension, you will know that their budget should be expected at a date later than March 31st and exactly what that date should be. No other levy authority has the option to request a budget extension. And then most of those other levy authorities, except for townships, are also not penalized if they certify their budget late. When we talk about penalties for late certification, cities, counties, and townships that certify their budget late are held to the last year's certified taxes. So if a city or county or a township provides their budget at a date later than the statutory deadline and they did not receive a budget extension in the case of a city or county, then their budget is penalized, held to the last year's certified tax dollars. And Department of Management will assist with applying that penalty if you have that situation in your county. The county auditor certifies all local government budgets, and this does include the county budget as well. So just be aware of that. Sometimes folks in the county auditor's office forget that their own budget needs certified, and it is prudent for someone else in the auditor's staff to certify that budget. So there's some separation of duties. As far as what you receive in the county auditor's office, when someone brings in their budget documents, there should be a proof of publication that helps verify that publication requirements are met. The proof of publication can be a legible copy of what was published in the newspaper. The affidavit from the newspaper should attest to the version published. And if the proof of publication is not legible, you can always request a new copy or have the levy authority request an original version from the newspaper. The county should also receive a copy of the adopted budget summary, a signed copy of the adoption of budget and certification of taxes page, the property tax tab in the online system for many of the budgets, a copy of the detailed budget forms for the budget year, long-term debt schedule for the budget year. So if it's an entity that's capable of certifying debt, then that long-term debt schedule would be included. Uh, if you if someone is printing off just all of the pages from their budget, it should include everything. So if they print off their whole budget from the online system, then that should include all of those pages. Also, there could be a situation where a new schedule or an updated long-term debt schedule is provided if the payment amounts for the fiscal year has changed. Pre-levy resolutions and surplus levy resolutions, if applicable, for the particular levy authority, say a school district. For cities and counties only, they need to provide a proof of publication for the max levy notice per Senate File 634 and also a signed resolution for that max levy. You as county auditor do not need to send any paper documents to Department of Management. You don't need to scan documents and send those to us. Any document that you receive from the local entities that are certifying budgets to you should be kept locally, and you should file those forms. You do not need to provide them to us. We access what we need via the online system. And if we have any questions or need any, documentation, then we can request it from you. You would compare the proof of publication with that adopted budget. So make sure that the hearing notice and budget estimates were published or posted within that not less than 4, no more than 20 days prior to the date of the hearing timeframe. That they were actually published in an official newspaper or posted as required. You want to make sure that the adopted property taxes do not exceed the published amounts, so that they did not adopt property taxes higher than what they published in their notice, and that the adopted expenditures don't exceed the published amounts, so that they also did not adopt expenditures higher than what they published. Cities and counties have additional checks due to Senate File 634, and we'll talk about those towards the end. But if there's any errors in the above areas, they should be returned to the levy authority for correction, and you can involve DOM at that point if you would choose. We can assist. Be sure to use that official proof of publication for verification. And just a reminder, you can have expenditures and property tax dollars go down in the adoption versus what was published, but they can never be higher. So you can, request less property tax dollars and lower expenditures than what you published, but you can't go up. With the verification, please make sure that the signed adoption of budget and certification of taxes matches the same form on the online system. And again, the publication time frame is requirement to publish or post not less than 10, no more than 20 days before the date of the public hearing. So the date of the hearing is not included. For example, for a budget that was having their hearing on February 22nd, the notice itself must be published on February 2nd through February 12th. And this is just sort of a visual representation. You can always, look at that hearing date and then count backwards through the days to make sure that the not less than 10, no more than 20 days was accurate. And of course, you do count weekends. You just don't count the date of the hearing. So, when we talk about proof of publication, one thing to realize is that cities, 200 or more, are publishing cities. If they're 200 in population or less, they post. So that's just something to be aware of with your smallest cities. And of course, townships post as well. They don't publish in a newspaper. The online budget system does pull valuation from the valuation reporting system when it's filed. So it's all a connected one database of information. But if you, as a county auditor, found that you had to make a late valuation change, be sure that you have notified the levy authorities of that valuation change. The system itself does not notify users of a change. It will pull the information in, but it doesn't provide any sort of notification. And the system does hold their requested dollars the same and then recalculates the tax rate. If you have any questions about how valuation changes are reflected in the system, or if it's, say mid-February and you feel like there might be a valuation change needed, please contact DOM and we'll discuss the process. And again, as I said, levy authorities are held to the same tax dollars as what they publish, not the same rate. All tax rates must be authorized by statute. You cannot put in place a tax that's not specifically allowed for in statute. If a rate requires an election, be sure that you have documentation of that election. If the rate has any other statutory parameters, so a rate can only be used, say, if another rate is at its maximum, be certain that requirement is being met too. Now, I will say Department of Management software is designed to help control errors. So we put in place, if someone's trying to levy a county tax rate of $4, it's going to provide the notification that it's above the levy rate limit, that sort of thing. But please be aware that, these are all, driven by the software. We try to minimize mistakes as much as we can, but you also want to do those checks through the certification process. And we don't receive notification of levy elections, so please be sure that any voted levies for property tax that someone has on their budget, you have a copy of the election information regarding that levy. And we do provide, DOM does provide annually a summary of tax rate limitation documents that we update each year. Regarding debt service, check to ensure that any debt service levy is properly authorized, that you, as the county auditor, have a copy of that bond resolution. You want to make sure that debt service taxes are being collected as required to meet those obligations. Make sure that debt service levy is for general obligation debt only, not revenue debt. And if a bond resolution is filed after the budget deadline, be sure to let DOM know. I'll take a few minutes now just to review the requirements for cities and counties under Senate File 634. Again, this is, a relatively new legislation. It's been in place a couple years, so it's not new this year. Nothing has changed for this year, but it's new enough that I think it's prudent to go ahead and do a review. So the legislation that passed requires an additional notice and public hearing for cities and counties only prior to the regular budget process. So all cities, all counties have to do an additional notice and an additional public hearing before they do their regular budget process. And the cities and counties have to file additional documents with the county auditor. They have to file a proof of publication for their hearing notice, this additional hearing that they have to have. We refer to it as the max levy hearing. And they, after that hearing, they have to adopt a resolution setting their max levy, and they also need to file that with the county auditor. Cities and counties are also required to post a notice on their website and on social media if applicable. And part of the resolution sample that we have provided cities and counties includes a statement that they will attest that they posted online as required when they adopt the resolution. So that is a statement within the resolution that they are required to attest to. County auditors need to verify all that regular budget documents and process as before, just like always, but due to this legislation, they also need to verify a few things. There is an additional max levy hearing and a notice for that, so the publication requirements um, need to be verified. Did they publish that not less than 10, no more than 20 days prior to the date of that max levy hearing? They need to verify that the max levy amounts were adopted by resolution and do not exceed the amounts published. So whatever was adopted in the resolution itself can't exceed what they published for max levy. And if a 2% increase is exceeded, the resolution itself needs to be adopted by a supermajority or 2/3 majority. The resolution that we provided lists a roll call vote suggestion, so that way you can easily count to see if the 2/3 majority was actually achieved. When the full budget is later adopted, the city or county cannot exceed the max levy amounts that they approved in that max levy resolution. So just keep that in mind as well. And a reminder, the budget deadline for cities and counties is now March 31st. As part of the certification process in the online system, there are particular check boxes that are related to the certification of items through Senate File 634. So just kind of be aware of that. So that's an overview of the certification process. I want to take a couple minutes to talk about budget protests. And even if your county budget is not being protested, county auditors do still need to be aware of the budget protest process, because county auditors are part of that process if it occurs within their county, if anyone is protested. So it is covered generally by Code of Iowa 24, Chapter 24. There is an exception. The county budget process requires 100 signatures per 3/31/436. The budget protest deadline was extended to April 10th for cities and counties because they have that later budget deadline of March 31st. For everyone else, their budget budget protest deadline is March 25th. So it's essentially 10 days after the original budget deadline, and same here with April 10th for cities and counties because their budget deadline is March 31st. The Senate File 634 legislation also required that a budget hearing notice include information on protesting the budget, and Department of Management added this language to the hearing notice, so it's not something additional you need to do. Protesting a local government budget is covered under Code of Iowa 2427. Persons affected by the proposed budget, expenditure, or tax levy, or by any item therein, may appeal the budget by filing a petition and appeal with a county auditor. And again, protests to a county budget require at least 100 signatures. For everyone else, it's a calculated amount of signatures based on the number of people that voted at the last governor's election. So the county auditor is going to have to verify those signatures and then forward a protest document to the State Appeal Board. The State Appeal Board is a 3-member board comprised of the Auditor of State, Treasurer of State, and Director of Department of Management. The State Appeal Board, upon receiving a valid appeal, is going to schedule a local hearing on that budget and that item. And the hearing itself is simple and informal. The State Appeal Board has set up rules regarding how they're conducted, and they may designate deputies to attend the local hearing. And that's usually what happens there will be a staff member from each of the 3 agencies represented at that local hearing. The burden of proof is upon the objectors for any item in the budget that was in there the previous year, and they're saying, okay, well, that needs to be reduced or excluded. The burden of proof is on the local government to show that any new item or any increase in any item is necessary, reasonable, and in the interest of the public welfare. So just an overview of what a hearing itself actually looks like. Again, it's held in the local city or county, what have you, that is being protested. It is informal, usually lasts about an hour. The petitioners present their appeal. The local government then presents their rebuttal and opening remarks. The petitioners have an opportunity for rebuttal. And then there's a chance for any third-party interveners. This would be any other organizations that want to speak on the behalf of either party. There's comments if there's any to be shared from the audience. The hearing panel, so the members of the panel that's there representing the board can have questions. And then there's closing comments by both the petitioners and the local government. Following the hearing, the State Appeal Board renders a decision. It is in writing within 45 days of the appeal hearing. The State Appeal Board can reduce but not increase tax asking and expenditures within the budget. And the State Appeal Board is going to work with the county auditor to implement any required changes to the budget that's under protest prior to finalization of tax rates. So if the State Appeal Board conducts a ruling that would reduce someone's tax asking, Department of Management is usually going to then work through the county auditor to make those necessary changes prior to finalization of the tax rate. And if you're curious, there are prior decisions and more information posted on the listed website of Department of Management. And again, even if the county budget isn't protested, this is important to a county auditor because any local government protest is filed first with the county auditor. And certainly, if you see that come into your office and you're like, what is this? Give us a call at Department of Management and we'll walk you through the steps. The county auditor is going to have to verify signatures and addresses, right? And then you're going to have to then forward that petition and protest documents to the State Appeal Board. And then after the fact, if there's adjustments needed to that budget because the State Appeal Board reduced taxes, then Department of Management will work with the county auditor to be certain that that corrected budget and impacted levies, that sort of thing, are corrected at the end of the day. So it's time now to just take a few moments and walk through the online certification process. And I will tell you that this is the same as it's been in prior years, basically. The one main difference now is that for fiscal year 23, you will have schools part of this process as well. So to certify budgets, again, you'd go to the Department of Management's county resource page and log into the valuation finance page like you would for valuations, your own budget, your annual financial reports, and say a budget has been adopted by a levy authority and they've dropped off all their required budget documents to you. You would log into the online system to certify that budget. You'd go to the applicable budget that you're trying to certify and select the edit icon to get into the budget. And then you'd select the certify budget at the top of the page. Check boxes will appear specific to that budget type, and you'd basically just walk through each of the items and check it off as you verify it. And you can stop at any time, save your progress and come back in later if you need to. And you will indicate if a budget is certified on time, late, or late with an extension. Once you have certified it, it will provide a notification at the top once the budget is properly certified. And then you'll also see the budget status change if you were to look on it just on the main page. If a budget is unable to be certified due to errors, it must be rejected. So you would select the reject button, that red button at the top of the screen. You would need to enter a brief explanation if you're rejecting the budget, and then you also need to indicate if the budget needs a new hearing due to a publication error and that sort of thing. So if they were supposed to give, at least 10 days notice and they only gave 8, they're going to have to walk through their budget process again and, republish. So you would reject it, indicate it needs a new hearing date, and give the reason. The budget is then rejected and it's returned to draft in the system so the levy authority can go in, make the required changes, propose again, and create a new publication page if needed. If you're rejecting a budget for any reason, obviously you've got to let that levy authority know so they can make their needed corrections. And you can also let DOM know. We can assist, with that process as needed. So that's, the big part of your responsibility then through that step is to certify all those local government budgets. Although there's not a particular deadline to certify, we do request that you get those done in April, if at all possible, because there's several additional steps that need to happen prior to the finalization of tax rates. So once you as a county auditor have locally certified those budgets and you've said they're certified, that tells us at Department of Management that those budgets are done and complete, and we can then do our final checks and we do what's called finalizing the budgets. So once they're certified locally, we verify and then finalize the budgets, and we send tax certification forms. And the tax certification forms provide that final tax rate to be used for that budget. Department of Management will alert local governments and the county auditors when online budgets are finalized. So typically, what I do, I know, is I wait for, like, say, all of the assessor budgets to be certified, and then I go through and I finalize all those. I send out a email to county auditors and the assessors and say, hey, your budgets are now final. County auditors would then log into the budget system to access the finalized budgets, and you can print off and save the certification one-page verification of the tax rate. And please be aware that the expectation from Department of Management is that that certification is reviewed as soon as possible by both the county auditor and that levy authority. If there's something wrong, we need to address it immediately and get it corrected. A rate that's incorrect needs to be corrected as early as possible in the system. Otherwise, the problem will just snowball and perpetuate, and then you're dealing with an incorrect tax rate in July that's very, very difficult to address. So again, discrepancies need to be reported immediately. Department of Management will notify you again once a levy authority type is finalized. You as county auditor will log into the online budget system, go to that budget and edit it to enter it. And then you'll print the applicable certification page at your convenience. You go to print, and then there'll be an option for certification, and that's just the one pager. Again, like other documents, you can open and print a hard copy, or you can save to PDF. To access budget certifications for levy authorities for which your county is not the control county, so, a school district that's in your county, but they're actually, their budget is actually certified by your neighboring county. To access that budget, you would not log into the online system. You'd just go there as a member of the public. You'd use the budget search option on the left to pull up the budget that you need. You'd select the Cert button to the left of the budget, and you can pull up that one-page certification document. You can also select the View button to see the entire budget. Basically, this is providing you with, the information that any member of the public could see. That's why you're not logging in. It's not a budget that you control. You're not certifying it, but you can certainly access the needed information, and you do that just by going to the public site. And you'd print the applicable certification page at your convenience. And this is an example of what the certification looks like. It's going to list out the rate, the property tax dollars with and without gas and electric, and then also valuation. So again, you'll want to take a moment when you see those come in, print them off, review them, make sure that that's the same thing that you show locally. So once all those tax rates are finalized, we continue to plug through the process, right? And the next part of the process is that we at DOM combine all those rates together to provide consolidated rates by tax district. So we do our process to finalize the rates, to send those certification, and then our next step is, of course, to consolidate those rates together by tax district. So when that happens, we ask you to double check the total rates by tax district, make sure they add to the rates that you show. Again, notify Department of Management as soon as possible with any discrepancies. Very difficult to correct mistakes when we're late in the process. So that's why we do, please request that you take a look at those once you see that they're available from us. Remember, Department of Revenue uses the Department of Management's consolidated rates for the calculation of the business property tax credit. So it is really crucial that those rates are correct because it not only impacts the process, the general consolidated rates process, it also impacts the business property tax credit process. And as I said before, we will let you know when we have completed these steps. So we will alert counties when consolidated rates reports are available. So we'd let you know, send you out an email and say, okay, consolidated rate reports are available. You'd go to, the same page. You don't have to log in to access these reports. They are available just under the valuation reports, and you'd go down to consolidated tax rates. It is available to you as a CSV, which you can dump into Excel, or as a PDF. And it looks just a little bit like this. This is what the PDF looks like here. This is what the CSV file that you open into Excel is going to look like. So again, it's going to list each and every tax district and the rate for that tax district. Now, you can also view the component pieces of the consolidated rate by tax district by instead going to the tax district recap report. And this is a report that's also available either in PDF or CSV. And it looks like this. The reason why I point out this report to you is if you do have a situation where you're finding that your consolidated rate for a tax district or tax districts is not matching what we are showing, you can narrow down the issue by running the tax district recap report, finding the tax districts in question, and you can go down to the bottom and you'll see exactly what we show as the component pieces for that rate. So you want to take a look at that, and then you'd say, oh, I show, a different rate for this school. What happened? Oh, you're still showing the preliminary rate, but the final rate changed at the end of the day, and so that's the difference, that sort of thing. So again, I point this out to you because it's a good way to verify any sort of issues and to sort of, really drill down into component pieces of a rate and find any discrepancies. And please be aware that we are happy to assist you through any part of this process. You can certainly contact us either by phone or by email. Thank you.